Did you have a plan in high school for what you wanted to study once you went to college?
So I'm a huge nerd, and I played games a lot growing up. Video games were my thing, and I kind of grew up with video games. So the first video game consoles and stuff, I kind of got exposed to that through my father, actually, who, in addition to wanting me to do really well in school and kind of having that old school like hard dad kind of thing going on, he also was a big kid, and he was really into electronics and stuff like that. So he first introduced me to games and computers with the Commodore 64 and like the Intellivision, like these really like old school like computers and consoles. So I always wanted to do something in gaming. That was my big thing. And the way I saw to do that was computer science. So that was basically the plan. Even though I didn't grow up programming, my dad didn't know how to program, obviously, and I had never had any real experience with it. You know, I messed around with a scientific calculator before and stuff like that. But I was like, okay, I want to deal with games. How can I do that? Programming is the way. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. So that's how that happened.
So did you apply to many schools to go for college?
I did. Yeah. So one of the things growing up in South Central LA is you get access to certain programs that help lower income families and stuff. So I was in Upward Bound at Occidental College, and it's a high school program where you spend the summers living on campus for a few weeks, taking college courses, and then they also help you with your applications to school. So I applied to a lot of schools, a lot of the Cal State schools. I applied to UCLA, applied to USC. I applied to NYU because I was like convinced that I was going to leave California. Applied to Brown. Applied to a lot of those places. I didn't get into all of them. I got into some, not all. But yeah, ended up at UCI.
Why did you choose UCI?
So the story of me choosing UCI is actually an interesting one, because I kind of felt like, even though I've always been a pretty nerdy kid, and I didn't get caught up in the traps that one could find in South Central LA. I was just on my own thing. I still kind of felt like I wasn't sure if I would belong in Orange County. So I was kind of nervous about it. And then me and my dad, we came to visit the school. And once when we visited, I had that, like, it had that real university feel, like walking around Ring Road and going through Alders Park and like the trees, and like it was just such a beautiful place. And it was just a real welcoming feel. And so that was part of the reason that led to my decision to come there.
When you were on campus visiting, did you interact with any of the students or anyone? And if so, what were your memories of that?
Not really. There was an orientation that I went to, and there were a lot of students and administrators and stuff there, but I didn't have any direct linkages. Well, there was one guy, actually. There was one guy in Upward Bound who also went to UC Irvine. But other than that, I didn't have that many real strong linkages to UCI. I just went and loved it. It was a whole big thing because I was super nervous about it. Dad went with me, and yeah, it was good. I felt welcome.
Can you tell me a little bit about your academic experience? Once you started UCI, what was your first? Let's start with that. What was your first quarter like?
Oh man,
as a student.
Oh man, so it was a mix of things. First of all, welcome week is like the best time to be a student. It's because you're just there, everybody's hanging out, everybody's out. There's nothing you actually have to do. You're just meeting people, you're getting used to the place. And that part I always love, like every single year, even after freshman year, like I love welcome week. It's just awesome. But as far as classes and academics go, it was a very formative time, because in computer science, this is where people quote unquote get weeded out. And me being fairly competitive, I'm like, this is like not going to happen to me. I don't care if I stick with computer science or not. I'm leaving on my own terms if I leave, whatever. So I buckled down like really, really hard those first like couple of quarters. And actually, the professor I remember most was the very first one I had, Professor Ray Clefstad, and he was just a really, really good storyteller, even though his class was actually pretty hard. Like he was pushing people who, some of which had never programmed before, including myself, to do these things and introducing these concepts that we had never really encountered before. But he would still like stop like a class to like tell like, hold on, this is what happened when I went fishing this week. Like this is important. So like I really enjoyed that about him, and I use that today. Like even when I'm running meetings or on my teams, if we're doing something important, like if it reminds me of a story, I will stop everything to kind of like relate to this semi unrelated story. So I'll always remember that.
Were there other classes or professors that you interacted with throughout the course of your experience at UCI that you remember vividly?
None more than him. A lot of the other like faculty and administrators and stuff that I interacted with, I remember them mostly through the organizations I was in. So I was in NSBE for my entire time at UCI.
What's NSBE stand for?
The National Society of Black Engineers. I started, as a freshman, just looking for something to do, and they were out there on Ring Road, like everyone else. Welcome week, I signed up, and I just loved it immediately. I became the webmaster the following year, my sophomore year, and then for the 2 years after that, I was president. So through that experience, working with like Robin Jeffers, she was head of the minority engineering program at the time. Like we became very close. And just being in the mix of Black orgs, you get to know like Dr. Parham and Fred Lipscomb and like all these people who were just kind of around helping with Black students. Those are the people that I remember, I look back to most outside of that one computer science professor.
For the engineering organization, was it a large organization? Were there a number of Black engineers that were part of it?
Yeah, so we got up to probably, I'd say maybe 20, 25. And they're not all engineers. I mean, there are some computer science people like me, some are like actual real engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers. Though the girl who's the president before me, Renee Williams, she was a chemical engineer at the time. So yeah, I mean, and then there were the engineering adjacent, that people that joined, people who just knew that NSBE was cool. They were there as well. So yeah, I mean, it was throughout the time that I was there, it was very active. The stuff we did on campus, the career fairs, and everybody knows about the NSBE General Convention.
I don't know about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me tell you. So the NSBE General Convention it's a big convention that they have every year, and it's at somewhere around the country. The first one I went to was in Kansas City. This is actually one of the first times except I went somewhere when I was like 11, but like as an adult / semi-young adult, my first time traveling alone. And we went in a group, and there's
a group from UCI.
Yeah, a group from UCI went, and all the chapters go, and they have chapter competitions for like chapter of the year. They have a huge job fair. A lot of one of my internships kind of came through there. A lot of people get internships there. I actually interviewed for an internship at the CIA through that, and it's just one of the largest gatherings of like-minded, professionally, upperly mobile Black engineers in the world, I would say. And it's one of the best times you'll ever have. Like, definitely some of the best times of my life are at NSBE conventions for sure.
Did you end up going year after year while you were at UCI?
Yes, North Carolina, Kansas City, North Carolina, Indianapolis, Anaheim, I think was the fourth. No, Orlando. How could I forget that one? Orlando 2002, and then Anaheim. Those are the 5 that I went to while I was at UCI. Yeah.
So what do you, is there anything that kind of stands out about what you remember about your peers who went with you as part of the organization to these conventions?
Yeah, like one thing about college, and I think NSBE is even more concentrated microcosm of this, is that there hasn't ever since been such a high concentration of people who are like-minded and intelligent and like finding out about themselves and what they want to do. And like, you get in, I used to get into all kind of crazy conversations about like the future and engineering and getting a job. And it's just such a rich like experience. So all the people that I met from that time period, they're all like insanely interesting people. Most of them are all like succeeding now to this day. It was just such a high concentration of Black excellence. That's really what it was. And it was just a good time. It was amazing.
It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you, from the excitement in your voice, it sounds like you had an amazing time.
Oh man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
So you started to say that you were participated in other organizations as well. So
Sure.
can you tell me a little bit about those and what they meant to you?
Of course, of course. I'm also a distinguished brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I pledged in spring of 2000, and that also kind of changed my life dramatically because, like, I talk about like high concentration of upper level people, like, and really that's what Alpha is all about. It's about manly deeds, scholarship, love for all mankind, trying to be the best possible person you can be, and not being shy about that. And so, I that those two organizations really I spent the majority of my time kind of being in and investing in my time and my soul and whatever. And they're what it means to me. It means everything. Like those experiences, I learned so much about myself in those times, about being a leader, about presenting in front of people, about performing in front of people. I was also a stepmaster of my chapter for a few years, my Alpha chapter. Um, Being able to give presentations, being able to have convictions about your ideas, all of those things really came down to those like formative years. Uh, they're all very helpful.
Tell me about being stepmaster.
Oh man, you know, uh, you channel to me being a stepmaster and being in that environment, performing in shows and even at parties and stuff like that. It's like you're channeling the passion of all the effort you put into being who you are and putting it on stage for people. So it's about the I the I okay. So becoming an alpha is not the easiest thing to do. I think people are aware of this. So
I
you
don't know.
work you work extremely hard to make it in, and then you make it in and you're so excited, and like all the philosophy behind like being the best person you can be for your community, lifting everyone up, being a part of the talented 10th and all this. It's like you can't, you at least for me back then, like I'm like concentrating that into my mind, and I want to be this like just this ball of energy, of inspirational energy. And that's what I try to put into my shows. And whenever anybody would see me, or when it's time, when the music starts and it's time to hop, like I'm in the front usually. And so that was what it was about for me, being generally trying to be the best person I could possibly be and be an inspiration to other people.
Where did you all perform?
Oh man. So we did shows all around UCI. We actually performed at a UCI basketball game once, which is awesome. And we performed the halftime show there. We would do stuff like the fall harvest. We performed there. Any yard shows that happens, like whenever new lines come on, any sort of like Greek events, and we were able to perform. We performed there. We performed at other colleges because our chapter is an area chapter. So anywhere between UCI and Cal Poly Pomona, we would likely perform there. Even at UC Riverside, we perform there as well. So yeah, I mean, anywhere we could, basically.
And are you still an active in the chapter in terms of your relationship with UCI and national?
So I'm not active in a chapter here in Texas, but I'm still in close contact with the boys in California. Some of them are my closest friends. They came to my wedding last year. We still stay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we still very much stay in close contact. And so in my non-work life, I'm also a competitive gamer still. And so when I travel, whenever I'm in a city that some of my frat brothers live, I always stop through and we hang out and catch up. So those relationships and those bonds are forever.
That's fantastic. Are there other organizations or activities that you were a part of while you were at UCI? I read that you were basketball.
Oh yeah. So one big part of the Black experience, I think, at UCI is intramural sports. And there's always at least one, possibly two, maybe three, like really good basketball teams, and they're like rivals. And so that was the same thing for us. So, me, my frat brother Lumide, and a few others, like we had a team, and there was another team of really good basketball players. Some of them kind of played on the UCI team a little bit, and there was like a big rivalry kind of between us. And the one really big, because we had some losses too, but the one big victory we had was the first time they did the intramural championships at the Bren Events Center. This is the first time, because usually this is at when they had created the Arc. So I was there when the Arc was built, like one of the first like people to be able to go in there and play. So this was this is 2001, 2002, okay, in that time frame. Mm-hmm. All the leagues and stuff were over there, but for this particular year, they decided, okay, we'll have the championships in the Bren Events Center, where the team plays and stuff. So everybody's like super hyped for this. And of course we have this rivalry going on and whatever. So we have the championship game and everybody's there and everybody's cheering. And we're down. It's like we're down by like 5. And there's probably like about a minute left. And I ended up scoring like the last 5 points to win the game. And it was like a big deal. I'm standing on top of the freaking like little scoreboard, like cheering for the crowd and stuff. It was amazing. It's like one of the best times of my life for sure. Like it's so funny. Like a lot of like interesting random things happen just by being in these organizations and meeting people. So I'm talking about basketball right now, but going back to Nesby for a second, one thing we decided to do was be on a taping of The Price is Right. So we got a group of people to come, went down to the taping. And when you go there, they try to pick out someone from each group, which I didn't really realize at the time. So they're interviewing each person in the group. And I think the brother of one of the people in our group, he's like a really funny dude. So they liked him. He got on the show, won the whole thing. And we all ran on stage and like got to get in the camera and all this. So it's just like a lot of cool like experiences like that, just random experiences that came out of being active in the community and active at UCI. Yeah.
Are there other social activities, kind of campus wide, that you really remember during that time? You attended UCI from 2000.
From 98 to 1998 to 2003. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 98 to 2003. Those experiences. So that I mentioned before, Nesby, Alpha, going to all the like Black Student Union stuff, because the Black Student Union is an umbrella organization. So as president of Nesby, I'm technically under that umbrella. So we kind of incorporate into all the other events there. Those things, yeah. One thing that happened to me, which is not necessarily related to the African American community per se, is that my competitive gaming journey started at UCI actually. Yeah. So now UC Irvine has UCI Esports, and they have this whole like arena, they have scholarships, they have a really good team and all this. Back then, Zot Zone was like an arcade with like 2 pool tables, a Soul Calibur 2 machine, and a Tekken 4 machine. That's basically it. But
you say Technophone?
Tekken 4 is a
Tekken
game.
4, okay.
Yeah, but it just turns out that a couple of like really legends in that fighting game community, they happen to train at UCI. So I would watch them practice, and stuff. I'm like, man, it'd be really, because I've always been competitive. I played basketball growing up. So watching people competitive at video games kind of combines like the two things like I love the most, like competition and video games. I'm like, okay, it would be really cool if I could get as good as these guys.
Could
And
you
that
names?
so one guy who, well, there's three people. One guy who actually went to UCI, his name is Chet. I don't remember his last name, but his gamer name is Chet Chetty. He went to UCI and he was really, really good in Tekken. And he was one of the top competitors back at that time. There's a fighting game tournament that's held in Vegas now. It's held in Vegas every year called Evo, and it's basically the Super Bowl of fighting games, like big international competition. And back then, he was one of the best placers in that tournament at that time. And then the other two guys that I watched train a lot, this guy named Dan, he was a computer science student, but he also trained with this guy named Eris. Eris is this guy who also goes by the name of Avoiding the Puddle now. He's one of the most popular gaming streamers on Twitch, but he used to play Soul Calibur 2 at UCI back in the day when like nobody knew who he was, and now he's basically nerd famous. And those guys are the people that kind of inspired me to get into the competitive game community and travel all over the country and come to Dallas and start the Dallas fighting game community group. We have like something like 2,600 people in that group now. And you know, it's been a long journey. Like the fighting game community kind of became my new fraternity, more or less. After college, I kind of started investing really heavily in that and traveling and building up that community. And that happened at UCI. It's just, you know, something that kind of happened there.
It's so interesting to hear about the history of gaming at the university, since esports is just newly established.
Yeah.
So it really has a history. It goes back, quite a number of years. So it's really fun to hear about that for sure. Were you all just kind of doing your own thing at the arcade? Or was there anybody overseas?
No, like there weren't that many tournaments or anything at the arcade at the time. We actually started doing that around the time I started going there regularly. But yeah, I mean, whenever I wasn't in class, I would, you know, get some change and you know, usually when you're hanging out like in the student center, I'd be there hanging out. We play dominoes, you know, in between classes and just talk mess or whatever. Eventually I started going to the arcade and I would go there and hang with those dudes and play and practice. And then not too far, well, in Southern California, there was like one of the last few legendary arcades in the country called Southern Hills Golfland. And that's where those dudes, Eris and Dan, that's where they went to tournaments and stuff like that. So a lot of the Southern California fighting game legends, like these people are like legendary in the scene. They were all training there. And so I went there, actually my very first tournament, I went there thinking I was actually good because I was beating up my roommates and stuff. And I went there and got destroyed. And that's when it kind of opened my eyes into this whole like new level of competitive gaming. And yeah, a lot of that history runs through UCI.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just learned something new today.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm thinking about the years that you were at UCI, and you were there during 2001, and so that was, when September 11th, the attacks on the trade centers took place in New York. And so, can you tell me a little bit about what was the atmosphere, what was going on at UCI while this was, taking place?
Yeah, so it was a really, really crazy experience for me specifically. So at the time, I was living in Santa Ana, not too far from school, with a really close friend of mine. His name is Bedford Palmer. He's now a PhD psychologist, and my frat brother Greg Richardson, who's now a lawyer in Atlanta, graduated from Emory. These are two dudes who love to talk and love to argue about stuff. So we were just up late at night one night, the night before, this is September 10th, just talking about like US foreign policy and talking about how things were being handled and how we felt like the US could possibly get attacked, like if some of these other countries that were mistreating just kind of like ganged up on us. And hello, am I still there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're still here.
I'm sorry, my internet is like, it goes crazy sometimes. And so we were talking about this like up until really early that morning, just talking. And then I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, I didn't wake up. I got woken up by my roommate busting in my room, like saying, like, we're under attack. Like, and when I hear that, when you get woken up in the morning, like, we're under attack, I'm thinking like tanks and fighter jets and internment camps. I'm thinking like it's over. Like, because I turn the TV on and I see World Trade Centers in smoke. So I didn't see the planes or anything. I just saw the smoke. I'm like, oh my God. So I called two people. Called my mom. Like, same thing. We're under attack. Like, this is not a drill. Like, it's going down. I called my frat brother, Illuminate. Bro, we're under attack. I don't know what's gonna happen. Call your family. Do what you need to do. And I was getting dressed. I was gonna drive to LA. So like, Mom, I don't know what's gonna happen, but we need to get together. She kind of talked me down off that ledge, but me and my roommates, who had been up, like stirred up all night talking about stuff like this, we're like, okay, this is over. All right, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna go to the supermarket. We're gonna buy up all the water, all the canned goods, like whatever we need to do, because we have no idea what's gonna happen. And yeah, it was just such a huge, like, obviously everything shut down. Nobody knew what was gonna happen. Travel changed quite a bit, obviously, after that. I remember before that, I had gone to a couple of NSBE conventions, and I traveled a little bit, but it's been so long that I don't even remember fully what travel was like before, TSA and all that. Other than I remember I was super late to my first flight, the flight to Kansas City, that I literally like ran up to. You could go directly to the gate and all that. Like, you can't do any of that stuff now.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know if, even though we knew it was a big deal, I don't know if we fully understood the effect it had on our lives since then. Just like COVID today, like COVID is such a huge deal. And it's gonna have its effects like over the next 10, 20 years. It's like, I don't think I'll ever go into like a crowded public place without a mask anymore. Like, why would I do that? Like, now it just seems, after everything that's happened, it seems like so crazy to me. So yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. Changed our lives forever.
You said you were living in Santa Ana at the time, and things were closed down on like classes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember having conversations with people, your friends or professors on campus? What was the messaging? What were people saying? Do you recall?
I don't remember, actually. The only thing I remember most is that initial state of panic, that initial feeling of like, it's over, like everything we thought or knew about the US and freedom and all that, like, get ready, I might get drafted, like, that I was on that level. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. That's what I remember most.
How long were classes canceled?
I don't remember.
Yeah. You were living in Santa Ana just for how many years?
So for my fourth and fifth years.
Fourth and fifth years. Okay.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time you lived on campus?
First year I lived on campus. I lived in Mid-Org.
Okay.
And then I moved to an off-campus apartment right across the street. So like, there's a parking structure on, like, right near the student center and bookstore and stuff.
Is that on campus?
Yes. So yeah, the apartment complex literally right catty corner to that. I lived there. I could literally see it from my balcony. So I lived there for my second year. And in my third year, I moved to Campus Village because my frat brother, Illuminate, he was an RA. And he's like, yo, get on this Campus Village housing. I'm an RA. It's going to be great. So I moved there. He ended up getting fired.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he ended up getting fired. Arnesia, Brian, I don't know if you know her, but she's real active in the Black alumni community. But she was in charge of RAs in Campus Village at the time. And they butted heads, fired him, and hired like a female RA. So I got kicked out and I moved in with another RA in Campus Village, who actually turned out to be a good friend. His name's Ray. He's a really cool dude. So that was my third year. And then fourth and fifth, I moved to Santa Ana. Actually, the guy who got me that apartment was a UCI computer science student who was graduating, and he was good friends with this guy named Lyle Wiedemann, who worked in UCI's engineering department. He owned that apartment, so he made the connection there. And then fourth and fifth year, I stayed there in Santa Ana. It's right there on the Santa Ana Costa Mesa border.
What was living on campus like for you, the years that you did live there?
It was great. I loved it. Like I'm a huge, like, I'm a homer. Like I love like my school. Like I have a lot of pride for UC Irvine and like being on campus and living and feeling that life. So I loved staying on campus and being walking distance from everything and all that. It was great. It was more cost effective to move to Santa Ana. And we're racking up loans by the you know what. So that's how I ended up moving in for my friends. And so that's why I did that. But I love my time on campus. It was great.
What are some other things that you remember about the Black community on campus during the years that you attended the university?
I would say very tight knit in a way. So, being such a small percentage of the general population, you tend to know everyone and you tend to acknowledge everyone. So if you're walking around campus and you see somebody, you give them a little, because like subconsciously you kind of know that there's very few of us, and so I remember that very much about it. I remember just the kind of shared experiences that we had, playing dominoes in somebody's room for hours at a time, going to all the intramural games, going to like Black graduation, and doing that stuff. Like those are the things I remember the most. Black graduation was nuts, by the way, for me.
Tell me about it. Tell me about why was it nuts?
So, okay.
First, let us know more about Black graduation.
Yeah, so Black graduation is a graduation ceremony specifically for the graduating students, African American students, separate and apart from the big official graduation, which everyone goes to as well. It's like specifically to celebrate the achievements of Black students graduating, which I think is amazing, especially considering how small we are relative to general population, and it takes on its own kind of feel, like kind of only we can. And it's very exciting. There's usually some sort of like video tribute thing that goes on. All the students are kind of introduced by name and all that. And that's where it got fun for me. So my family, being who they are, they all showed up with shirts with my name printed on, like a picture of me on it, and a cake with the same picture, and it was like a big deal.
They brought the cake too?
Yeah, they brought the cake. They brought the cake too. And so we're actually supposed to go out in alphabetical order, and my name is Champ, so I would have been relatively early. But me being like the super alpha that I thought I was at the time, I basically convinced them to let me go last. And then when they announced my name, I was like, okay, here's the track you need to play. It was the pistol grip, and when that was played, all the boys, we're about to make it happen. So, Alpha's coming out the woodworks, coming from all the aisles. They all come up on stage and we're hopping. And, it was a great celebration, one of a kind celebration. And I'm so glad that I decided to do that. And actually, I think after I graduated, one of my frat brothers did something similar, but he proposed to his girlfriend at Black graduation. So I like to think I started this like tradition of people trying to do extra at Black graduation. You're welcome.
Who else attends Black graduation besides the students and the families? Do you remember where it was held?
What Black graduation was called?
No, where it was held.
Oh, where it was held. Oh, the dog's going nuts. I'm sorry. Hold on. Edit this, sound guy. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, we'll take this off.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so it was held in, so there's an auditorium in social sciences. No, yeah, I think it's social sciences. It's like a newer, so the old library is on this side. Like I'm walking down Ring Road, there's a library on this side. You're walking in that first big auditorium that's going to be on this side is where it was held. So I don't remember. I think it's social sciences, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Social
that sounds about right. It's the right area.
Yeah.
By Langston Library.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's where it was held, and their faculty and staff went as well. Definitely all the minority engineering type administrators went. Robin was there. Kika Friend was there. She ran the camp program. I guess I'll get to that. I'll rewind to camp because camp was actually very influential in me going to UCI as well. And yeah, it was just a big celebration, man. It was much more of a like celebration than like a pomp and circumstance. It wasn't like that. It was we had fun and we laughed and we cried and we really celebrated our time together.
And what kind of, you said administrators and faculty attend as well?
Yeah, they do. Anybody invested in in the student's life at that time, they showed up. Mm-hmm. I mentioned camp, and this is like a complete like non sequitur, not about graduation, but camp was another thing that introduced me to UCI. It was the minority engineering like summer program right before school started. So actually, my school, I went to Thomas Jefferson High School, South Central LA, and my school let out late into the summer before camp started. So actually, I left school and started taking classes at UCI that summer before high school graduation. I literally left UCI to go back to school for graduation and then went back to UCI. And that was kind of my first taste of like kind of campus life.
So what happens at camp stands for?
It stands for something, I don't know. I don't remember what it stands for. Something like minority engineering, something. Hold on.
I'm going to look it up.
Yes. California Alliance for Minority Participation. I'm sorry, Kika, if you ever see this. Like I didn't remember. But yeah, it's for minority engineering students to kind of introduce them into UCI, kind of get a nice on ramp. You take some classes early, and you have tutors and all that. It's really good organization to help ensure the students are successful, minority students are successful.
And this is summer before you enroll your first classes?
Yep, the summer before my freshman classes.
For a whole quarter, so 10 weeks, or just for a couple of weeks?
I want to say it was like 6 weeks. 6 weeks, yeah, something like that. But yeah, camp was great. Another one of those organizations that was very instrumental in me kind of getting in and getting comfortable. Yeah.
You've so far shared so many amazing experiences and activities, and it seems like it was a super easy experience for you to just kind of like sail through. And I wondered if there were any challenges that you faced while you were at UCI and how you might have overcame those.
Well, actually, no, it was actually super hard. Well, there were parts that were super hard for sure. There were classes that kicked my butt like really bad. Like actually calculus, it beat me up like real bad. I took calculus like 3 times. But I did well in other classes like linear algebra and that stuff. Like the very first class that I took, math class that I took at UCI in camp, it was horribly hard. Like I had no idea what that guy was talking about. And it was like discrete math. I think that was the class. And he's doing like proofs and stuff. And I hadn't seen none of that before. And it was just, I got destroyed. So that I did go through a lot of the growing pains of like learning how to manage my time, trying to make, like I learned that for me, like any class before 9 o'clock is like, I'm not going to make that consistently. Like this is not going to happen. I've always kind of been like an evening person. And so, learning how to manage your time, learning how to manage money. Like I said, my family didn't know much about college life. My dad didn't, like I said, my dad didn't graduate from high school. Like there was no college fund for me. It was just scholarships, grants, and loans, and how to manage that effectively, and deal with that. Though there was some definite growing pains there. But yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about the stuff I love because generally I love college. I had such a great experience. But yeah, I mean, even like as president of NSBE, for example, you have to come up with something to talk about. Every few weeks, you have to do all these solicitation packets for your sponsors, to make sure that the organization has enough money to function, that you can send people to these conferences, and things like that. There's a fair amount of responsibility, sprinkled in all of that stuff I talked about before. But yeah, it was great. I loved it, even the hard stuff. I loved it.
Are there any kind of memories that that you haven't talked about yet that you wanted to? Like, was there a fondest memory that you didn't get to discuss yet?
Let me think about that. Not really. I think we did really kind of talk about most of it. I mean, most recently, I visit California fairly regularly. My family's still there, and about a month and a half ago, I was on campus. I went to buy some like UCI Alumni stuff and walk around and like see what it was like and if it felt the same or whatever. And it's just so interesting to, like, it feels so familiar, but also so different. There's so many new buildings, and the kids, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, but the kids seem younger. It's like, it's like, I feel like an integral part of the history of the place, but also that there have been something like 4 generations of college kids that have come and gone since the time I was there. So it's like a completely different place too. So, having that experience as someone who was there, almost 20 years ago, and coming back and looking at it and seeing how it's different, that's a new part of the experience, I guess. That is different. Yeah.
Currently, there's a Black Thriving initiative that's been put in place by the Vice Chancellor or Douglas Haynes. I don't know if you've been following along with some of the news around this, but the initiative is really taking a critical look at how to create an environment where at UCI where Black faculty, staff, and students can really thrive. I wonder if you have any words of wisdom or advice or anything based on your experience and your relationship with UCI from the past to the present about how to, really support a thriving campus Black community.
There's a story about how I decided to choose UCI that I didn't know if I was going to tell her or not because I didn't know how relevant it is, but I think this is kind of related to your question. If it's not, just edit it out. It's fine. So one thing that I was really nervous about was, will I fit in? Like, I come from a lower socioeconomic background. I'm a Black, so I'm already a minority there, which I was wondering how all that would pan out. Also, I didn't like In-N-Out. I thought In-N-Out was gross. I didn't like it at all. And my father, who ultimately convinced me to go to UCI, he's like, son, you haven't tried In-N-Out in a long time, so you think you don't like it, but I guarantee you will. So he's like, these burgers are so good that you don't even need ketchup on it. They're just that good. This is like what he's instilling in my head. And I'm obviously skeptical. I'm skeptical about the whole thing. I'm skeptical about UCI. I'm skeptical about leaving my family. I'm skeptical about Orange County. I'm skeptical about In-N-Out. And so we do the tour, like I mentioned before, and we walk around, and he's reassuring me the whole time that, this is like I know you better than you know yourself, like fathers have to say. And if you think about all of the things you've done to this point, you've always found a way to survive, and not even that, to thrive. And I believe in you, and I believe that you can do this. And afterwards we went to In-N-Out, and he's like, son, buy you one of these burgers, you're gonna love it, and whatever. And I had that burger, and it was like the best burger I ever tasted at that time. Completely changed my perspective on In-N-Out for the rest of my life. And at the same time, it just all came together. It's like, this is the place for me. It's all going to be fine. The burgers are good. The people are nice, and you can make it. And that's it's more of a personal story than a relevant one. But I will say that trust in yourself, and be okay, like, expressing who you are. I think one thing about, like, living amongst a multicultural society is people will try to neutralize it. They'll say, we don't see color, whatever. Like, to me, that's not the way to go about this. Like, be proud of who you are, and be willing to express that in whatever way it is. Like, if you're a nerd like me, like, be a nerd. Like, don't change. Like, that is part of the Black experience. There are Black nerds too. Black nerds, Black people can be gamers, Black people can be computer sciences, and you can be conscious, and you can be any of those things that you want to be. And I think a lot of it really comes down to having someone that reassures other people of all different parts of the Black experience that it's okay to be you. And that you should, not only is it okay to be you, you should express that and expose it to the world, and help them see that, that it's a great thing. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
My random story.
It was really great. Thanks for bringing that, like, full circle, and using that analogy of the walk with your father. It sounds like he was a real UCI advocate.
Yeah, he was. He also didn't want me to go more than 40 miles from South Central LA, so he could, like, pop up on me and say, and do the whole, like, I'm always watching you kind of thing. But yeah, he's very, very influential in my choice. I'm glad I did it.
Can you tell me a little bit about, what you're up to now? What happened with Ryan Champ after graduation at UCI?
Yeah, so that was a great adventure as well. So I did actually did a lot of internships and stuff through UCI, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my computer science degree. I worked at Canon, tickets.com. I did network security research. I even did, I was an RA for a minority kind of like math program for kids, which was actually one of the most fun jobs I've ever had, by the way. But at the end of it all, I still was kind of ho-hum about it, but I've still always loved games. So I was like, okay, maybe about 2 to 3 months before graduation, there was a press release kind of thing that came out that SMU has a master's level program for game development. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I am not very happy with the options I have here. So I'm going to apply to this program. And if I get in, I'm going to pack my life into my little 96 Celica and drive to Dallas. And that's exactly what happened. I got in the program, came to Dallas sight unseen. I had never been here. I had never even seen my apartment. I signed up for an apartment without looking at it, not even knowing what neighborhood it was in. I just knew that it was close to SMU.
And SMU stands for?
Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. And that started a long journey. I worked in the game after I graduated from that program. In the first class of graduates from the Guildhall at SMU, which is game development program, I worked in the game industry for about 2.5 years. And at this time too, I'm still like super young. So I'm really into competitive gaming. I met up with some friends here in Dallas, and we're traveling every weekend, like driving and this is at the time we're driving like little arcades and stuff. It wasn't like big ballrooms and stuff like it is now. So I was still very much in the gaming industry and in that mode. But I also did realize that I love playing games more than I like making them. So the game industry kind of burnt me out, and then I got into regular kind of e-commerce web development stuff. I worked for a few years at this place called Fellowship Tech from 2007 to about 2011. Very high concentration of really talented people, and that's where I cut my teeth on web development. Learned a lot from them. And then from there, I went on to work at GameStop. I worked in their corporate headquarters for 8 years. So I worked on GameStop.com. I worked on the mobile app. I've done all kinds of like integrations and stuff there. Worked on the point of sale system. I spent a large part of my professional career giving blood, sweat, and tears to GameStop. Still working in the game industry-ish, but not like actually making games. So that was like a really, really good place for me. And from there, I worked at a startup for a while, a telecommunications startup. Worked there for a year.
Can you repeat that for a second, Ryan? I didn't hear it. You froze for.
Sorry.
Just when you mentioned the name of that company.
Yeah, so I worked for a telecommunications startup for about a year, and this is kind of around COVID. So we were putting together a system to allow people to talk directly to doctors from home. That was a really, really cool project. And then I went on to work where I work now. I'm a consultant, senior consultant and tech lead at Zeal IT Consultants here in Dallas. It's a small kind of boutique consulting firm. And yeah, now I'm a dad, husband, a six-year-old girl. So that's another like life-changing story. It's been forever talking about that. Yeah, living the dad life. Still traveling. Like once COVID kind of dies down, I'll travel still a little bit for competitive gaming. And other than that, just trying to get my nugget ready for her school journey.
Yeah. What are some of the kind of fundamental takeaways from UCI that you brought with you or you take with you through all these various, after graduation experiences that you've had?
The main thing I feel I got out of UCI, aside from the great like connections of people, is learning how to learn. Being confronted with a bunch of non-trivial problems, both in schoolwork and socially, that have no immediate like trivial answer, and working through that, trying to find a way to solve problems, trying to find a way to figure out things that I don't previously know. I cultivated a love of learning and reading from my experiences at UCI, in addition to all the other stuff I talked about before.
Last check-in, was there anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't cover?
No, nothing other than I love my UCI experience with everything. So like I'm so happy that I was able to do this. It was great. My experience at UCI was great, and I hope that I portrayed that in this interview. Because I really love my experience at UCI.
Describe your UCI experience in 3 words.
Transformative, fulfilling, and enriching. Fun. Yeah. Transformative is the word, though. I think if there was one word, it would be transformative for sure.
Transformative. It's been such a pleasure talking with you and learning about your UCI journey or UCI experience. It's really fun to listen to your stories. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.